how to be a data analyst using Excel. We're going to create step-by-step this report right here from analysis that we did using charts and also functions and formulas, from a data set that we cleaned and organized it from a raw data set. So we're going to follow here a couple of steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to create this report. First, we're going to have a raw data set, and then we're going to make some adjustments to this data set to create some analysis using functions, formulas, charts, and also here a card. And then we can combine all those things, make a conclusion, see what is good, what is not, and then create a report and print to PDF or print in a printer, okay? Save or file in PDF or send to someone using email, or use this report into your presentations, into your dashboards, and on and on. So I hope this video can help you out on how to do a data analysis here in Excel in a practical way, step by step. So let's go now find out how can we do it. The first thing that you need to do is to have a data set. And two important things here. The first one, you can download this Excel file for free. Just click in the link in the description down below, and that way you're gonna have the same data that I'm using here. Or if you don't want to download this Excel file, it doesn't matter, because the second important thing is you can use your own data. You can use your own data set to follow along this step by step, because the purpose of this video is to show you how to create analysis here in Excel using any type of data set. So be free to use your own data set. Okay, so we already have the data set. Now let's take a look here in the steps and see what we have. First, data set. Okay, this first step is already done because we already have the data set. Have a data set to make analysis. It can be an Excel file, spreadsheet, or a notepad file, etc. Here in the second step, we have data set adjustments. Clean and organize data to remove errors and improve visualization. Okay, so let's do the second step now. If I go back here to my file, we can see that maybe it's not that perfect, because there's a lot of maybe columns, a lot of rows that maybe it's not that important to me. So we can read off those values, those informations that we are not gonna use here. And we can also make things correct wrong things, such as, for example, if you take a look here in the first two columns, we have order date and also the purchase date. Tell me, what date is that? Because it's wrong, right? The format is not correct. If we pay attention here, we usually use date as, for example, January 1st / 24, for example, that is the year 2024, okay? And because of that, we need to make sure all the numbers or all the values are in the correct format. Another thing that we maybe can correct here is, let's say, the column H. I have here the system ID. I'm not gonna use the system ID for anything, so I can read it off this column. And let's say in the column L, I have here freight cost. Freight cost is a currency, is dollar. So I need to transform those values and put everything with the dollar sign. And okay, so we need to do a lot of things here to make sure our data set is clear and precise. But before we do all those steps, let me duplicate my download. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna press the Control key in my keyboard, Control key, press and hold, okay, press and hold. And now I'm gonna go here over my download spreadsheet where I have the data set, click, hold, and drag to the right, because that way we can duplicate this Excel spreadsheet. But why should I duplicate those sheets? Because I like to have each one of the steps that I usually do in each one of the sheets, in a specific sheet. So let's say my first step here is the data set. So the data set is in a specific sheet. The second step is to have the data set adjustments. So my second sheet here is going to be about the adjustments. I like to do that way because I have all the steps that I did in each one of the sheets. And let's say you don't know if you did something correct. You can come back to a specific step, a specific sheet, and then you can see what you did. Okay, so I think it's a good idea to have independent sheets for each one of the steps. And as this second step here is about the dataset adjustments, I can change the name of the spreadsheet right here. So right click and then rename, and I'm gonna type it in here adjustments. Okay, enter. And in this, we can actually change the color too. So let me right click again, tab color, and I'm gonna use no color because I think it's better. Or you can use another different color. You can use any color that you want to use. The first thing that I need to change here is the size of those columns because it's too small. Take a look, for example, basically, actually all the columns are too small because you can actually read perfectly the titles that I have here, the headers. The headers is too large, the name is too large for the size of the column, so we need to make the columns a little bit larger. And to do it, I'm gonna select the entire column A, just click over the letter A, and then drag to the right, B, C, D, on to the last column that I have, column M. Now, in between one column and another, it doesn't matter which column you want to use. In between one column and another, you're gonna double click, to make sure now all the columns is gonna be automatically resized to perfectly fit each one of the values. Okay, now that we did this first task, let's say, let's correct the values that are with the wrong format. As such as example, the column A and B, because as we are talking about date, we need to change those formats. Those values right here are dates. Let me select the column A and B, and then home. Here to the right, I'm gonna have general. I'm gonna click here in this down arrow, and I'm gonna choose, let's say, short date, because now I have the date that I need, January 1st of 2024, and on and on. Another thing that I need to change here is the dispatch date and also the delivery date. Those two are wrong, so I select here everything again, home, and I'm gonna use the short date too. Okay, like this. The system ID I'm not gonna use, so right click here, delete. Okay, delivery days is correct, everything here is correct, and the freight cost, I need to change something here because the freight cost can be it's a currency, so I need to change the number format to a currency. Let me go to the home tab, and I can select here $sign. Just click over the $sign or whatever currency that you want to use here. Okay, freight cost. Payment method is correct, and that's it. So we're done with the second step, that is to clean and organize the data. We already clean and organize the data. So okay, the second step is done. And don't forget to click in the floppy disk, because that way you make sure all the steps are being saved. Now the third step that we have is the data analysis. Make analysis from the database. Obtain important information. Example, total sold per region, production time per machine, etc. This third step right here is where we should use formulas, functions, or pivot table, for example. Any tool, any feature that Excel has to help you make analysis or analysis if you're gonna make more than one. And as the first analysis that we can have here is something broad. But before we talk about analysis, let's create here another spreadsheet. Just click this plus sign. Okay, this sheet number 2, I'm gonna right click, rename it analysis. Okay, analysis, because here we're gonna have a couple of different analyses. Now let's come back here to the adjustments and see what type of informations we can use to create analysis. As the first analysis, I always like to start with something broad, such as the total freight cost. But wait a minute, I don't actually have the total freight cost, but the individual values. But if I make an addition of all those values, if I add up all those values, I'm gonna have the total freight cost. So it can be my first analysis, something broad. And then, because I already have this specific value, this large value, this broad value, I can make it more specific. Such as, for example, I can use the state name as a criteria. Let's say I want to know how much I have from the freight cost to the Alabama, for example. I can use this criteria, and then from Alaska, and on and on. So that way we take something broad and we can make it more specific. We can specify it. Or actually I can use the payment method and see how much I have from the freight cost for each one of the methods. I can do it. So let's come back here to the analysis and start to build those analyses. The first one that I'm gonna start with is something broad, as I said before. And that one is gonna be, let's say, the total freight cost. Enter. Now to the total freight cost, I need to add up all those values that I have here. So to add up things, to make an addition, we can use the equal sign, the sum function to help us, because the sum function can add up values. Let me double click here, 1, 2 to select, and I'm gonna select, go back here to the adjustments, and I'm gonna select the entire column K. Okay, just select here, then this entire column K, and then enter. Here we have the first analysis, the total freight cost. Let me increase a little bit the size of this column, and yeah, here we got. Now, as the second analysis that we can have here is payment method. And here I have 3 different things. And actually, let's say you don't know how many different items or categories you have in a specific column. You can use filters to help you. You can input here filters. And to do it, you just need to click in anywhere inside your data set, and then you're gonna press the shortcut key, Ctrl-Shift-L, to input the filters. And then you can click here in the last one, and as you guys can see, I have 4 different options: bank transfers, cash, credit card, and debit cards. Okay, let me cancel. And I'm gonna take all, instead of typing manually, I actually can select everything here. So let's say I'm gonna click in the first cell, Ctrl-Shift-Down to select everything, and then Ctrl-C to copy. I can come back here to the analysis, and then Ctrl-V to paste. And I know what you are thinking. Now you have a lot of repetitive values. I just need to click here, Data, and then I go to Data Tools, and I can select this option right here, Remove Duplicates. Let's click here. Let's click OK. OK again. And yeah, that's it. So now I have each one of the different payment methods. Now in the next column, I'm gonna have, let's say, the total freight costs for each one of the methods that I have. So let me just copy this title that I have here, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, and OK. In order to, instead of make an addition of all the total freight that I have, to add up all those values, now I need to use a criteria, because I don't want to add up everything. I want to add it up if the method is equal to cash, and then debit, and then bank, and on and on. To do it, I can use, instead of the sum function, I can use the sumif function, equal sign sumif, because I'm gonna make an addition if the criteria is met. Let's double click here, 1, 2. The range that I'm gonna use to as the criteria is here in the adjustments, and is the range of the last column, column L. This one right here. Let me select everything, comma, and as you can see through the formula bar right here, just click in the formula bar, comma. The criteria, the first one, is here in the analysis, and I'm gonna select cash, the value that I have to the left, comma, and now my sum range is also here in the adjustments. I'm gonna select the column K, like this. I'm gonna press enter, and here we got the correct result, $80,000 for the cash, the payment method. Let me select this first value, home, and put into the dollar sign, the dollar currency. I'm gonna click here in this down right corner of the cell, click, hold, and drag down to make sure now all the cells contain the same function. And we're done with the second analysis. Now we have 2 different analyses. The first one is the total sold, the total freight cost, and the second one is the total freight cost, but using a criteria. Now, in order to make it simple to identify those analyses and to separate those analyses, I can select the first one, click in Home tab, and use a different color for the first analysis. The second one, I can select everything again and use a different color. Okay, now the third analysis that we can have here, let's think. It can be, now I can use the states names, all the names that I have, and I can, let's say, see what is the state that I have the largest delivery time, and what is the one that I have the smallest one, and what is, let's say, the state that has the most orders. I can do it. I can count all the orders that I have for each one of the states. I can do a lot of different analysis for each one of the states that I have here. So the first thing first, let me select everything that I have here in the column I, Ctrl-Shift down to select everything, and then Ctrl-C to copy. Here in analysis, Ctrl-V to paste. Now, because I have a lot of values that are being repeated. I can select everything, click in data, and then data tools, remove duplicates. Click OK, OK again, and we're done. So this is all the states that I have in this report. Of course, there is a lot of different states, but the ones that I have here are those. And as the states names I already here, the first analysis that I can start with is the quantity of orders. So let's say, instead of adding up the total freight or anything like that, I want to count the quantity of orders that I have for each one of the states. So as you guys can see, each one of the row that I have here represents a specific order. So if I count the quantity of rows, I'm gonna have the total orders that I have. But I don't want to count everything. I want to count using a criteria. I want to count all the orders that I have for Alabama, and then for Alaska, Arizona, and on and on. To do it, I can use a function in Excel that is called countif. Count the quantity the times the Alabama appears here in the list. So let's say 1, or the first order. So here's 1 for Alabama. Here is the second appearance, so 2. And then we have maybe somewhere again, so 3, 4, 5. That way that this is how the countif function works here in Excel. We can count with a criteria. Equal sign countif. That way we're gonna have the quantity of orders for each one of the states. The range that I'm gonna use is here in adjustments, and I'm gonna select the column I, comma, and let's say my criteria is gonna be here in analysis, the first state, Alabama. Enter. So I have 17 orders for Alabama. If I click hold and drag down here in the down right corner of the cell, I can see all the different quantities, orders for all the different states. 21, 11, 44, and on and on. If you have some difficulty using the countif function, basically we have here the range where we are using as the reference to count everything that match with our criteria that is here, okay? So it's pretty much simple. You first select the entire range that you're gonna use to count, but you're not gonna count everything, just if the criteria is met. So just 2 things that you need to select here. Okay, so this here is the third analysis that we did. Let me use another color here, such as yellow, for example. And now that we already have here this third analysis, I can basically copy everything here, Control C, and in a column, let's say, in the row underneath it, Control V, because I'm gonna use the states names again. So that way it's easier, you know? Okay, let me read it off. And this one, because it's gonna be our fourth analysis, I can use a different color here, such as maybe orange. Okay, yeah. Now we have the total freight cost, the total freight cost per payment method, the quantity of orders, and the last thing that we can have here, let's say, the box quantity. I think it's something cool to see in this analysis. We have the box quantity for each one of the states. That way we're gonna know what is the states that has more volume of boxes, let's say. Let me come back here to analysis. And in order to, again, make the box, or to make something different, because to have the box quantity, we're gonna need to use the sumif function again. But let's do something different. Let's use the delivery time. How many days it took to deliver each one of the orders, because instead of adding up all of those values, we're gonna need to have an average. What is the average delivery time or days for Alabama, for Alaska and Arizona, and on and on? So what is the average? Because that way we're gonna use a different function here. So average delivery time or days. Time. Okay, it's gonna be time, but it actually I'm gonna type in here days. Okay, it's understandable. Let me increase the column B a little bit like this, and yeah. As I want to have the average, I can use, let's say, equal sign the average function, but the problem with the average function is it's gonna take the average for everything. But as I want to use a criteria, I need to use the average if. So this is what you're gonna select here. The range first is the range where we have the states names. that is here in the adjustments, the entire column I, okay? Through the formula bar, now we can follow here, comma. My first criteria can be, let's say, the Alabama, and then, comma. Let's see what we have as the last argument here. Average range. Okay, what is the range that the average function is going to use to take the average? So the column H, okay, column H. Enter, and here we got the first result. So for Alabama, the average delivery days is 3.6 days, 3.6 days. Let me click, hold, and drag down to make sure now all the rows contain the same function. And you guys can see we have a lot of big numbers here with a lot of decimal places. If you don't want to use a lot of decimal places, you can read it off them. Basically, you can select everything here and go to home. And maybe you can use, let's say, 0 decimal places, but that way we're gonna have no preciseness to see the value. Or we can actually increase 1, 2 decimal places, because now we have a little bit of preciseness here. 3.6, 3.78, 3.84, and on and on. I think the analysis step is done. So let's save here this file. And before we move on to the next step, let's just make here, let's just understand everything and see what is good, what is not. Just let's analyze what we have, because this is what is important. You don't need to have a random analysis. You need to do analysis that is going to work for something. So the total freight cost is something important, because that way I can see it's hit the goal or it's above, under the goal. $23,000 to the freight cost. It's a good thing, it's a bad thing, or whatever, okay? I can make analysis through those values. I can take a decision. Payment method, the same thing. I have here the total freight cost for each one of the payment methods. As I can see, the credit cards are the one that is being used in the list. So why is that? Why this value here is so small? It's because, let's say, the taxes, it's because the fee, I don't know. There's something here that is making the credit card the least used one. And I need to check for the solution for this problem. This is what is important, okay? See something that is not correct and try to find the solution. This is what is important. Of course, here, I can suggest a lot of things but in your real situation, you need to give a real solution, okay? Here is just an example. Let me come back here to the steps. And the fourth one, now that we're done with the third one, is data visualization. And here we have transform analysis to make them easier to understand. To do this, we can use charts, cards, etc. Okay. We already have the analysis, but we need to make it easier and to understand. Let's say somebody else is going to see this file and they need to understand what you want to show them. So using charts, maybe it's a good solution, because a chart is a faster and easier way to see data instead of using numbers. At least this is my opinion, okay? I think it's easier. Let's start with the first analysis that I have. And to do this first visualization, I can use actually here a card. A card is actually a card, a shape where we can have the value and also the title for the value. It's just one thing that is displaying in this shape. I can go to the insert and then let's say shapes. I can choose a rectangle one or also a rectangle with rounded corners. I can place it here, maybe this size right here. I think it's good. And as you can see, there is this yellowish circle right here. If you click, hold, and drag to the right, you're gonna make the rectangle rounder. And if you drag out, you're gonna make with the sharper corners. I'm gonna stay in the middle like this. Now I'm gonna go here to a shape format, shape view, white, shape outline, it's gonna be black, and shape effects. Maybe I can use here a shadow just to make something a little bit better. Now I need to take the value that I have here and put within this rectangle. And to do it in a dynamic way, let's say anytime I change this value right here, the value in the rectangle is gonna also automatically change for me. I can click in the shape, and then in the formula bar, I click here, equal sign, And now I can select the value that I have here. Enter. Here we got the result. And it's completely dynamic. So if I change here the value for anything else, let's say Jopa, and then I'm going to press enter, as you guys can see, the value inside the shape is also changed. Now let's click again in the shape and go to Home tab, increase the number a little bit, maybe 28, put everything in bold, just align in the middle, and also centralize here maybe. Let's just bring it down to the bottom like this. I think it's better. And use the size 32. Okay. Now we need the title above here, the number, within the rectangle. So I can go here again, insert, and text box. Let me place the shape here. And here I'm going to type it in basically the same title that I have before. Total freight cost. You can make it dynamic too, following the same thing that we did before. But here I'm going to do it manually. Let me increase a little bit like this. Put everything in bold, centralize, and yeah. Now I need to read it off. Read it off the color of the background and also the outline. So shape format, shape outline, no outline, shape fill, no fill. Okay, now I can click here in any cell and to make it, let's say, to group together those two things, because if I click, hold, and drag, just one part of my card is gonna be moved. So with the card selected, with the rectangle, now I can press and hold the Control key and also select the value that I have up here above the text. Okay, so select both things using the Control key. Now I go to shape format, group. Okay, that's it. Whenever now I move one piece, everything basically is gonna move together because now they are grouped together with each other. This is the first visualization that we can create, a card in Excel to just show one value. Now another visualization that we can use here is a chart, let's say. And as the chart, we can use a column chart, or actually, I think we can do something different. We can use here a done chart to display those informations that we have here in the blue analysis. If you pay attention here, we are actually compare each one of the categories of payment, and the done chart can be a good chart here because the done chart can display the percentage of each one of the categories, and also through the size of the slice, we can see each one of is larger or which one of is the smallest one, and on and on. So I just select everything here, insert, I'm gonna go here to the charts, and first I'm gonna start with the done it one. Done it. Okay, click here, and yeah, that's it. Let me move this chart just here above, and then chart design. Let's take a design here because it's a faster way to create a good chart in Excel. Excel has a lot of different styles here, and you can take one, such as the style 8. Okay, I think it's good. And as I said before, we can compare each one of the categories through the size of the slice. The bigger the slice, the bigger the value. And also we can see the legend here above with each one of the categories. But let's say, instead of using this legend just above the chart, I'm gonna put everything here to the right or to the left. So I can click here, chart design, add chart element, legend to the right, for example, like this. Okay, now it's better. Total freight cost, okay, it's correct. Let me click here with the right click on the slices and then format data series. And then I can change, let's say, the angle of the first slice to rotate the slices, maybe like this. I think it's good. Donut explosion. I always like to use 3%, but of course you can use the number that you like the most. And for the donut hole size, I'm going to use 40%. Let me click here now, effects, shadow, and I'm going to use a shadow here. And maybe I can change also the colors of each one of those slices, but I'm going to let it away because I think it's already good, okay? So let me close that. Let me click in the area of the chart, the whole chart, and then format, shape outline, black, shape effects, shadow. Okay. I'm going to increase a little bit the size of the donut. Just click over the donut, and through these little circles, you can click and drag out to make sure you can increase those size, okay? Like this. Yeah, I think now it's better. Let me click in the legend and make it more readable using the bold and also the font size 10, 11. I also gonna click in the percentage, home tab, and use 14, 16, 18. 18 is better. It's easier to see. Okay, our third chart is done. Do not forget to click in the flop disk to save your Excel file. Now we can move on to the third analysis. That is can be the state name and also the quantity orders for each one of the states. And here we can use just a simple chart. That is the column chart. That is the chart that has the bars to in a vertical way. That way we can compare from the size of each one of the columns, the value of each one of the states, and also from the value that you can put above each one of the columns, okay? So I can select here everything, and I can also compare those categories with the column chart. Insert, column chart, okay, the first option. Let me make some change in this chart, increase it a bit, like this. Let me read it off, the values to the left. I know those values are important, but I'm gonna place those values in a different spot that is above each one of the columns. I think it's a better way to display those values. Let me right click just over the columns and then format data series. And here I'm gonna, let's say, I have here, let me read it off this tag that was up here. The series overlap are gonna stay as it is, and the gap width are gonna change to maybe 165, 150. I'm gonna click here, effects, use a shadow to each one of the columns. Also, I'm gonna click here in the fill align, fill, solid fill. I'm gonna use a different color here, so more colors, okay? Of course, you can choose a standard color that Excel gives to you, but I think it's a good idea to use more colors because that way I can have access to a lot of different colors, such as this orange right here, or this one, or also a reddish one, like this, okay? It's much better, I think. Let me minimize the fill and maximize here the border, solid line, and I'm gonna use the same head as I used before. And with the width, I'm gonna use 10. Enter, okay, like this. Because with the larger the width, the number, we can have a rounder corner in the columns. Let me close now this panel, and I'm gonna click here, chart design, to the left, add chart element, and data labels, outside and like this. I can click in the number itself and make it a little bit larger, like 12 or 14. It's better to see. And I think I'm done with this chart. Oh, the last important thing is clicking the area of the chart, format, shape outline, black, shape effects, shadow, the first option. Okay, so we're done. This is the chart that we're gonna use here to the second analysis, to the third one, sorry, the third analysis. And of course, as we use head here, and we are using yellow here to the analysis, maybe it can be a little bit complicated to remember later. So maybe we can switch those colors. Instead of using yellow here, I can use an orange one. And this one right here, I'm gonna use a blue, let's say. A blue color. This one I'm gonna use a yellow one. Okay, so we change a little bit here. The last chart that we can create here is to the last analysis. That is the state name and also the average delivery days for each one of the states. Here, again, as we have a similar situation to the analysis above, we can have a column chart, a bar chart, or actually a tree map chart. And there's a lot of options, but I'm gonna do something simple here again and use the column chart. Insert, column chart, that's it. Okay. You can be free to try to use another type of charts, such as the tree map chart, the sunburst. There's a lot of different options. I don't think the pie chart or the donut is a good choice to this analysis right here because we have a lot of different categories. So imagine all those categories in being a different slice. Maybe the slice is going to be too small to contain all the categories. So I don't think it's a good idea, but you can see if you like it, you can keep it. Now let's go to this chart right here. Let me move it to the left a little bit and increase the size like this. And I'm gonna do basically the same thing that I did before. That is, I'm gonna read it off the values to the left. I'm gonna read it off the grid line. Those blue columns are gonna change. Format data series, gap width 150, shadow, and also the color. I'm gonna use a custom color. It can be, let's say, a green one. Maybe this green right here. Okay. And then the border is gonna be basically the same color. And do not forget, because we need to use the width equal to 10. Now I can close here. And now I can go to chart design and add the values just above the columns. Data label, outside and like this. And I can increase also the font size to 16 maybe. I think it's 14. Yeah, 14 is better. Okay. So we're done with the chart. The last step actually is format, shape outline, black, shape effects, and use a shadow. Okay guys, so all those 3 charts, the donut chart, these 2 columns one, and also the card are done. So do not forget to click in the diskette, the flop disk, to save the Excel file. Now we can move on to the last step, that is, after the data visualization, is create a report. We can summarize the analysis and also include visualization features to deliver a final conclusion of the result. As we need now to create the report, let me add here a new sheet, right click, rename, and report. We need to be mindful, because what is the conclusion of all those analyses that we did here? So basically what I like to do is, because I have 4 different analyses, I always like to have different, let's say, different solutions for each one of the analyses. And in the ending of the report, I can have an overall solution, or I can summarize everything in the ending. But again, this is just the way that I like to do. You can do, of course, be free to do what you like the most. Let's come back here to the report, and let's start with decrease a little bit here the size of the column A to width equal to 2. And in the column B1, I'm going to start with the name of my report. So let's say I'm going to type it in just something simple, because it's just an example. You, of course, you're going to use the real name, the real title that you need. Report, let's say, final result of the analysis. Okay, it's better. Now I can select here a couple of cells till the cell J, maybe, and then home, merge, and center, and align in the middle everything, put everything in bold, and also increase the text size like this. So this is our header. And to match with the column A, we also need to change the width in the column K. So column width, and then 2. Okay, like this. Now within this area right here, we can organize all the charts that we have, all the visualizations, and also we can create our conclusions. So let's say my first conclusion can be about the total freight cost. I can type it in here first, total freight cost. And as the total freight cost, I'm gonna have the first visualization, that is this card right here. So I can click that here and Control C to copy. Now I can go back to the report, and I'm gonna do something different than Control V. Right click and then paste as a picture, because now we have a picture instead of a card, or instead of a chart. It's easier to use in the report a picture than a chart. Okay, let me reduce the size, maybe like this. Okay, now I'm gonna select here, let's say, area to type in my conclusion like this. Home tab, merge, and center. We're gonna align everything in the middle and bring the text to the left. Let's say my conclusion here, I can also put the title in bold. My conclusion here can be, let's say, the total freight cost is under the target and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so maybe I can have analysis here. Of course, I need to give a conclusion, if it's a good thing, if it's a bad thing, and what is the thing that we need to do to solve the problem. If it's bad and if it's good, what we can continue to do to improve. Okay, so this is what I like to type in here in the report. But just to make it simple and for the video not take too long, let me basically copy everything here, press enter, and yeah. And as you guys can see here, this large cell right here is cut part of the text, the sentence. And to correct that, I can go to the home tab and use the wrap text like this. Something I think it's very important here is, let's say you want to use a new row. You can use Alt Enter to break the rows, to use a new row, a new line. And that way you can type it in, again, new things like this. Okay. Now the second analysis that we have, let me basically copy the title, Control C, Control V, because we're going to use the same format. Came back here to analysis. It's going to be, let's say, the total freight cost. Select here, Control C, go to the report, right click, and place as picture. Now I can make it a little bit smaller like this. Okay. And here we're going to have second title, that is total freight cost per payment method. Okay. And to make sure we can have an area where we can type in the conclusion, let me select this area right here. Home tab, merge and center, align in the middle and bring the text to the left, and also wrap text. Let's say here the second analysis, I have the total freight cost for the total freight cost per payment method represents a good result and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let me just copy everything here just to pretend I type in something important here. And okay, so this is the second analysis that I have, second solution. Now the third one can be, let's say this, let me copy this, Control C, Control V. I'm gonna select both charts, or first select the one, Control C, place here as picture, and then as the third one, Control C, place as picture. Okay. Let me bring this chart right here. And for those charts, I can do something different. Maybe I can group them together like this, and then I can give final conclusion. Okay. So here is gonna be third and fourth. I'm gonna let it the same title as before just to make it faster. Okay, now I'm gonna select this area right here to give my conclusion. Home tab, merge, wrap text, bring everything to the left, and let me copy everything here, Control C, and here, Control V. Okay, so I done here. This is my report. I can save it. I know that it doesn't look that beautiful right now because we have all these grid lines here in the background and on and on. But if you press the Control P to see the area, the print area, it's much better. Now we can, let's say, print to PDF or actually print the paper. You can print in PDF and also send to email or whatever. This is the report. I can, of course, adjust the report to fit in just one single area in the paper. And to do it, let's say, I'm going to click here in this third option, page break preview, because that way we can see the printable area of our file. Everything that is in the gray area is not going to be printed, and everything that is within the white one or within this blue outline is going to be printed. And what is separate the page one or the first page to the second one is basically this line right here. So we can take this line, click, hold, and drag down to make sure we have everything in just one page. Let me click in this line, click, hold, and drag down, and yeah, that's it. Something that I just realized here is we actually have the column A and the column K as our threshold, let's say, to the printable area. So I can increase a little bit the size of the area. Just clicking this blue outline here to the right, click, hold, and drag to the right, like this. Okay, now it's perfect. I'm gonna press Ctrl P again, and as you guys can see, the entire report now is within one single page. And okay, it's not perfect aligned here in the middle, but we can do it. Just need to click here, custom scaling, and then custom scaling options, margins, horizontally and vertically. Okay, and yeah, that's it. Now it's perfect. And we're done. So this is our report. This is how I usually do a report in Excel using a data set. And if you want to print into PDF, you can click here and then print. Or if you want to actually print in a physical way, let's say in a paper, you can choose here your printer and then print. Simple as that, okay? Let me come back to the spreadsheet, and all those steps is what we did here. If you have any questions or any suggestions to the next videos, let me know, comment down below, and I see you tomorrow because every day has a new video, so I see you there.